Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right in and taking a really deep look into the very foundation of digital credibility. We're unpacking a fascinating framework called Codatta, and specifically its architecture of dynamic trust. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is Codatta? Well, it's essentially a decentralized protocol. Think of it as a foundational layer designed from the ground up to completely rethink how digital reputation actually works. Because let's be honest, the web as we know it today, it completely lacks a native layer for verifying who actually knows what they're talking about. This source outlines a really compelling proposed solution to that exact gap. So, if you value clear, structured learning and getting straight to the core of complex systems, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it. So let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about this. Should trust be assigned instantly? It's a provocative question, right? And it challenges the basic mechanics of how our digital spaces currently operate. Right now, we constantly hand out credibility based on incredibly fleeting signals. I mean, think about it. A quick glance at a May's profile picture, a sudden viral post that grabs our attention, or even just a purchased verification checkmark. We treat these totally superficial markers as hard, historical proof of reliability. But relying on a quick glance to build a reliable ecosystem, that is super dangerous. It falsely assumes that momentary visibility is the exact same thing as lasting truth. When we treat trust like a light switch you can just flip on without demanding any sort of proven track record, we're literally exposing the entire network to manipulation.
Trust should be earned. I'll say that again because it's that important. Trust should be earned. It sounds fundamentally simple, almost obvious, right? But implementing this concept actually represents a massive paradigm shift for the internet. See, historically, the web was built for communication, not for native verification. The early protocols were just designed to move data from point A to point B. They didn't judge the credibility of the sender. And because there was no built-in trust layer, over the years, we just slapped on these subjective band-aids. You know, the ones follower accounts, likes, upvotes. Moving away from that legacy to a system where trust actually requires verified proof, that means we have to tear down those old assumptions and build a fundamentally new architecture.
Okay, let's dive into this instant trust problem, because it's a big one. When we assign trust the exact moment someone joins a platform or goes viral, the entire foundation of credibility becomes incredibly fragile. It's like a shiny trophy. It looks super impressive on the shelf, but it shatters under the absolute slightest pressure. We are evaluating digital authority completely backwards. We give so much weight to metrics that have absolutely zero correlation with the truth. Sure, a massive follower account might tell you someone has a great marketing strategy, but it definitely doesn't confirm they're reliable. When our digital ecosystem values those quick impulses over hard facts, misinformation just spreads like wildfire, simply because the system is set up to inherently trust the messenger before it ever bothers to verify the message. Let's compare how this looks in practice. In the traditional old model, contributors often gain authority just because they showed up early, they beat the clock, or because they speak the loudest, wielding a giant metaphorical megaphone. The algorithms on our current platforms actively reward that sheer volume and early adoption because, well, those behaviors drive user engagement. But here's the catch. Being first or being loud does not mean you're actually hitting the bullseye of truth. The architecture Codatta proposes completely flips this instant trust model on its head. Under their new model, authority is strictly dependent on one thing: repeated accuracy. It demands hitting that bullseye consistently, shifting the whole ecosystem away from rewarding sheer noise and requiring verified precision instead. And that brings us to the technological disruptor here: dynamic reputation. This is the concept that really changes the game. Imagine a core network that constantly has to protect itself from a barrage of outer threats. Bad actors trying to manipulate data, spoof their identities, or just spam the whole system. Now, if trust in that system is static, a bad actor only has to fool the system one single time to gain permanent access. Pretty scary, right? But a dynamic mechanism refuses to let trust just sit there statically. It acts as a living, active shield, constantly recalculating a participant's standing. This ensures the core integrity of the network is always protected from new and evolving threats. So how exactly do we define this? Dynamic reputation is specifically a system that tracks and adjusts trust continuously based entirely on the presence of strong, accurate signals. To really get this, let's define what a signal actually is in this context. Think of a signal as a concrete, verifiable action. For example, a user submitting a brand new piece of mapping data, or correctly verifying a complex transaction on the network. But the absolute key word here is dynamically. Trust isn't just handed out after one good submission and then forever locked in. No way. It breathes, it updates, and it is strictly tied to an ongoing, unbroken stream of these verifiable actions provided by the user. You can think of the whole system effectively acting like a strict funnel. Up at the top of this funnel, you have this chaotic mix of noise, users trying to shout the loudest or coasting on the fact that they created their account 5 years ago. But because reputation is tracked dynamically, this funnel catches and filters out all of that noise. There is zero inherent authority granted just for arriving early, and there is absolutely no authority given just for being loud. The architecture is completely intentionally blind to when you arrived and how much noise you're making. The only thing that passes through that filter to influence your standing is verified substance, the actual accurate data you bring to the table.
So, if you can't use the traditional shortcuts, how does someone actually establish credibility within this framework? Well, the journey to authority here is definitely not a single leap or some overnight viral success story. It is a very deliberate step-by-step journey. The mechanics of the Codatta network are designed to forge a genuine, earned path to authority by constantly evaluating contributors over time. Every single interaction you have with the network is a step that either moves you forward or sets you back. This guarantees that influence is always built on a solid foundation of proven reliability, rather than just some fleeting momentum.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because this continuous feedback loop operates organically in 3 clear stages. Step 1, a contributor provides a strong signal. Let's say you're tasked with flagging spam across the network, and you correctly identify a piece of malicious code. That's your initial verifiable action. Step 2, the network actively learns and assesses that accuracy by cross-referencing your flag against other verified nodes. It checks your work. Then, step 3, based on that hard assessment, your trust level is dynamically adjusted. Maybe they increase your moderation weight in the network. It's a constant, living evaluation loop that happens with every single interaction.
The absolute, unbreakable rule of this entire architecture is that authority requires repeated accuracy. Achieving a high level of trust is not a one-and-done event. You can't just rest on your laurels. What happens if a contributor builds up all this trust by being totally accurate 10 times in a row, but then submits false data on their 11th try? The system dynamically downgrades their authority right then and there. It handles deviations immediately. Consistency over time is quite literally the only way a voice gains true weight here. The second the accuracy stops, the authority begins to erode. It proves that the system always demands ongoing proof to maintain your influence. When you string together a vast network of individuals who are all operating under these strict rules of repeated accuracy, you are fundamentally shifting the future state of the internet. You're bridging that massive gap between uncertainty and truth using a measurable standard. We are moving away from abstract, fuzzy ideas of who we merely feel we can trust, and we're starting to treat credibility as measurable infrastructure. I mean, think about the profound implications here for developers alone. Instead of trying to build applications on top of our fragile, trust-assumed web, developers can build on top of a rigid, verifiable foundation. They can know for a fact that the data inputs have been heavily stress-tested by dynamic reputation. And this brilliantly illustrates one of the core quotes from the source: an ecosystem where truth compounds. Let that sink in for a second. Truth compounding. Just like compounding interest creates exponential wealth in your bank account, compounding truth creates exponential network reliability. When an entire system dynamically learns who consistently provides those strong, accurate signals, the reliability doesn't just add up piece by piece, it actually multiplies. The whole network becomes exponentially harder to attack, spoof, or corrupt because the collective weight of continuous verified accuracy forms this massive self-reinforcing barrier against misinformation.
The real transformation we're talking about here is a massive shift from a subjective cloud of feelings to rigid, measurable blocks of certainty. Subjective trust relies on hazy, easily manipulated metrics, things like follower counts, general popularity, or pure volume. Honestly, it's just a guessing game. By turning credibility into measurable infrastructure, Codatta totally replaces that guesswork with quantifiable tracking. It demands that trust be anchored in real data rather than just perception. Those hazy thought bubbles of the old web are entirely replaced by the solid, interlocking blocks of a system where every participant's reputation is just an open mathematical reflection of their actual, proven contributions.
So, this leaves us with a really critical question to consider as we navigate the modern web today. Does your digital network currently treat truth as subjective or measurable? Next time you're interacting with various platforms and protocols, take a moment to consider the underlying architecture of trust that you're relying on. Is it a fragile system built on who happens to be the loudest and who arrived first? Or is it actually moving toward a measurable foundation of repeated accuracy? Exploring how we transition to these measurable ecosystems is honestly one of the most vital challenges of our digital future. Keep learning, keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll see you for the next explainer.